Good morning.
So, team, a very good morning. This is Saurav, your host for the day. Shall we begin, sir?
Sure.
Great. Hey, everyone. Before we start the insightful session on careers in product, data, and design, let me just give you a quick introduction about the Institute. Now, IPL, which is the Institute of Product Leadership, has been in the space of executive education for over a decade now. Now, we being for over a decade in the industry, we get a lot of questions around mid-career transitions. Things like how can you change your current profile and take that plunge towards cross-functional leadership roles, which the hiring managers refer to as techno-business leaders? What are the essential skills needed for aspiring product leaders? What are the best industry practices? Now, is a product management role the right career path for you? Things like these are I would say crucial analysis that we all go through, but sometimes it also becomes a mental block. And this is exactly what mid-career crisis is all about. In today's session, we will discuss a lot of what I just mentioned, but we'll also take some time to help you go through IPL pedagogy. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Professor SaiSatish Vedam, who was very recently the ex-senior most director of Oracle for product management. Professor Sai comes with about 25 plus years of experience in the product space, is among the leading practitioners who are associated with IPL as coaches. So, Professor Sai, over to you, please.
Thank you, Saurabh. You could stop sharing the screen. Let the audience look at COVID avatars these days. I think all of us are hunkered at home, and I hope all of you are staying safe and taking care of your loved ones. I think this particular wave is devastating. It has impacted people directly and indirectly. So all of you take extra precautions and extra care wherever you are. And what I'll try to do in this session, in probably next 1.5 hours, is talk about three trends, industry trends, especially that are impacting and influencing our careers. And I'll talk about three tips that I have, understood by coaching literally hundreds of people in the last several years, right? So as Saurav mentioned, I spent about 24 plus years in the technology industry building very large scale products for very large companies. I worked in Sun Microsystems as part of core Java team, messaging team. My subject matter expertise is in enterprise collaboration. And I've been part of some incredible projects, life-changing projects. I was part of a project where, the first rover was sent to Mars. And just being a fly on the wall, watching that project evolve was an inspiration for me to move from an architect in Sun Microsystems to product management. It was a deliberate, considerate effort to get into product management, not an accidental route as many product managers do. Many of them fall into that role and then figure out what to do. So I'll try. And then, of course, in the last 14 years in product management, I've started with one product, ended with managing about 8 products with global customers with multiple $1 million of revenue. Along the way, I've hired many product managers, and honestly, I was a bit disappointed, mainly because several of them who claim to have product management experience, what I found is lack in some fundamental aspects of product thinking, product mindset, and also some skill sets and a structured way of approaching it. And that kind of triggered me to basically decide that I would like to contribute something to the ecosystem, and that is when I started getting into coaching and mentoring, and engaged with IPL for several years as an executive coach for product labs and also a senior faculty for the executive MBA program. Right. So with that introduction, as I said, 3 industry trends, 3 tips, and then I'll spend some time on. I was asked to talk about the IPL pedagogy and several programs that IPL offers. And more importantly, I believe after every such session, there are a lot of questions that come about, how does this program help me? Now, I think let's keep this interactive. And at the end of it, we'll definitely take questions. And don't hesitate if you have a question in between as well, just raise your hand and we'll spot it, and then we'll take the question in the context itself. Right, so that sounds about right, I hope. Now, what I'd like to quickly do here is a show of hands for these three questions that I will ask. Right, how many of you are currently in engineering roles? Right, when I say engineering, it includes development, product development, project development, solutions architecture, or implementation. Right, so just do a raise hand on the Zoom, and then we'll look at that. Super. About looks like 19 of you are in that role. Great. Thank you. How many of you are in business analyst role or project manager role? Either of it. Business analyst or project managers. Good. Looks like almost we have a 1/3 distribution going on here. Is anybody here currently in product management role? And one last question. How many of you are actively considering transitioning your career or even accelerating within your own company in the next 6 months into preferably product roles and product leadership roles? I would assume the answer to be majority of them, because otherwise on a nice Saturday morning, why would you want to spend time joining this? Now, I know some of you may be in a very different roles, and I understand that. We can go on asking many of them, but I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Don't worry, we are not going to focus or tailor-made conversation around the questions that I've asked. It is just I wanted to understand the composition of the audience today, on a ballpark way. That's good. Super. Okay. Thank you so much. So let me start, as I said, by highlighting some of the industry trends that I believe, and these are not new ones, right? These are ones that you are probably familiar with, that are actually directly and indirectly influencing our current roles, the effectiveness of it, the relevance of it. By the way, a lot of roles today are disappearing and new roles are getting created. And what are those trends? So if you look at the Indian R&D, IT especially, or R&D centers, I categorize them into 3 stages. Right, the first phase began when companies like Infosys and TCS started a couple of decades ago, primarily focusing on helping clients or customers solve specific problems that they have using technology, using IT, and create bespoke solutions. Right, so often people call this as a services industry or IT services. What I'd like to call is value optimization, meaning that there are companies that are creating value by solving specific problems through products, solutions, services, or offerings. Now, often both Indian IT services companies and also global majors, right? IT majors like Accenture or Capgemini or any of these services had Indian offshore centers where the focus was on delivery and execution, right? So that is value optimization phase, and that has done very well for the IT sector. Many companies have been built on that business model. Many of you actually have got opportunities to join right after your education into those companies, and that is great. Then another stage of the R&D centers is what I call as value co-creation. And this is typically, you would have seen multinational companies setting up Indian offshore centers, right? They were called IDCs, India Development Center, India Engineering Center, or Offshore Development Center, or whatever it is, right? The different names. So the purpose was very simple. These MNCs or multinational companies were creating products for global markets, and they were looking at places where they could get the best of talent at most optimal price. And these teams worked together with the people from the parent organization and created value. So it's co-creation of value by the teams and all. So most of the technology R&D centers that you see of big multinational companies would fall under that. So of course, within that phase, there was evolution, right? Initially, these companies started with quality assurance, quality engineering, testing based activities, and moved up to engineering and development, and then slowly moved up to value creation, which included product roles, right? Product management, product leadership roles. And now many companies who have been operating in this country for more than a decade or so have recognized what the talent here can produce, the maturity of the talent, and then started handing over more strategic initiatives, projects, and responsibilities to these offshore centers. The last 5 years, and in fact, me along with several people in the industry were part of several industry bodies to focus on. What we realized is that very soon the companies in India or the people in India are going to create products. We'll have to create products, starting with solving local problems for customers. But then there are certain problems and needs that are global in nature. So there is no reason why you can't expand to global markets, right? So we kind of envisage that will take about 7 to 8 years, or even 10 years. And hence, we would need to develop an ecosystem that will support that part of phase. And that phase is called value productizing phase, which means we are going to create products, services, and offerings, not just for local customers, but also for global, being developed and delivered and taken to market from in India. Now, what was surprising to me, and it's a pleasant surprise to me and many others, is that was accelerated really, really fast. It took about 4 years to get there. So in the last 5 years, if you see, now there is a very thriving ecosystem of product companies, right? A lot of them are technology companies, and many of them you're familiar with, right? You have e-commerce products and companies, you have food aggregator companies, you have fintech companies, you have lots of them emerging in many different areas. So now what that has created, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, it's an interesting, important trend to understand, is there is a severe need or an imminent need for people with product thinking, product mindset, and product skill sets, because you're no longer creating delight for client, one client, two clients, which is what happened in the phase one, right? And phase two, most of us were isolated, or rather, not deliberately, but subconsciously not part of directly working with the markets and customers, right? Often you are working with the people who are directly interfacing and talking with the markets. But whereas in phase three, this requires a very different type of approach, a different mindset and different skill set, right? So there is a dire need for people who understand this way of building products, and product roles are being created at a frenetic pace. In fact, one interesting statistics is about India has 39,600 product managers today. If I just go by the titles are very interesting and creative in India, but even if you just go by the title, whereas in the US there are 1.2 million, right? And this in India, the rate at which these jobs or these titles are being added is dramatically faster than any other place in the world. So there is a lot happening on the demand side. The supply side is not catching up as much as we want to, primarily because a lot of folks who are in the phase one and phase two are still continuing in those models and work profiles. There's nothing wrong with that, but there are certain roles that are actually disappearing right now. I'll make some controversial statements in this, but I believe absolutely true, because I've seen it happen. When I talk to people, they acknowledge that it is happening. So if you look at certain roles like engineering management, right? So many companies have this title as an engineering manager. Now, often that is supposed to manage the engineering process and innovation aspects of it. But eventually, most of the places it ended up managing people alone, right? So you become a people manager, and most of your time is spent on managing those people, and that role is kind of disappearing. And I'll tell you why in a second. Similarly, project management and program management, when it comes to large projects or even essentially products, that role is becoming redundant. Of course, it's morphing, right? Those roles and titles are morphing into what you see as product owners and product managers. And so hence there is a definite need for upskilling for the folks, especially when I say 7+ years, right? There is this phrase that is used in different contexts called mid-careers. Now, mid-careers definition varies from country to country. In the US, it is 10+ years. In India, apparently it is 7+7, anywhere 7 upwards. And if you're in 10+, you are definitely in a mid-career, right? And a mid-career is a very interesting stage. Most of us start asking these questions about, the way I would define mid-career is not by number of years of age, but the way I would think about is we have enough experience to realize and have enough maturity to realize we know what we don't want to do, right? But what we want to do is still unclear. And hence, a lot of questions arise saying that, look, I am stuck here. I have been in this place for a long time. I don't know what else to do. My company doesn't seem to offer me these opportunities. But if I am trying outside, I am not hearing from people wherever I'm submitting my resume. And these are all, common refrain that I hear from many, many people, believe me, hundreds of people, right? So I'll talk about some tips how to overcome that and take a different strategy. But it's important to recognize that there is a demand for specific type of mindsets and skill sets. I'm not just emphasizing skill set, but it's a unlearning that needs to happen before new learning needs to happen on those mindsets, right? So that is trend number one. Now, trend number two, many of you are aware, but I wanted to pick some really simple examples that we are all familiar with in a day-to-day life, in a simple consumer context. There are a lot of interesting examples in the business context, but I'll talk about data-informed decision making, right? All of you are familiar and are well aware of right now that data is being used in many, many different contexts in products, right? So it is being used to prioritize things. It is being used to understand customer behavior or user behavior. It is being used to sometimes even manipulate our behavior. And I'm sure you're familiar with Cambridge Analytica, influencing voter outcomes and policy making and a lot of things happening, right? So these are all based heavily on data. Now, a lot of people call about data-driven decision making. I would not go that far because we still, lots of humans are involved in making subjective decisions supported by various data. Now, many of you are familiar with this particular, pictures that you see, right? The small pop-ups or the things on web pages, right? And many of you know it's called a CAPTCHA. Can anyone in the audience tell me what is CAPTCHA? Now, without Googling. If you tell me, I know you are an engineer.
Just to see whether you are a machine or a human, because machines can't recognize the distorted images, but only humans can.
That's true.
That's one way of security.
Good. What's the acronym of CAPTCHA?
Oops.
It's
Completely automated.
The CAPTCHA is there to avoid any sort of course, that human thing is definitely there. But I've seen in one of the movies where Google interns have created this kind of system to avoid any unwarranted any critical data.
That can actually create denial of service attacks or a lot of those things, right? But
yes, but Google has acquired this CAPTCHA.
Yes, absolutely. So CAPTCHA stands for completely automated process to test computers and humans apart. That's CAPTCHA, right? So it's a mouthful of an acronym. But what is interesting is how it came about, right? This is one guy, engineer in Carnegie Mellon University, who realized that there is a problem. How do we know that what we're presenting to the user and asking them to provide, for example, login credentials or a form or anything, is actually being done by a human, right? Because there are a lot of smart kids, script kiddies, you call them. They started writing scripts and automated filling forms and filling forms in a rapid way that caused denial of service attacks. So he came up with this mechanism that says, look, human cognition is so powerful that even if we twist and create a squiggly word and present it to human brain can decipher that, but not any program, right? So that's where it started. But it was very annoying, right? I mean, I'm sure many of you, many years ago, when you started seeing this very annoying thing, it was not unclear. And while many of us who use regularly computers may find it a little better, imagine, your parents, your uncles, your relatives, it was very, very annoying. So essentially, they calculated that there are 200 million captchas entered per day, and that amounted to wasting 500,000 hours. Imagine the loss of productivity by just typing this captcha. So another guy came up with this brilliant idea and said, why not put that thing to actual use rather than just typing, asking users to type what the word is. This was a time when books were being digitized, right? And Google got into this business of digitizing lots of books and putting it on the web, and lots of other companies as well. Now, OCR was not that well recognized at the time, optical character recognition. So the OCR systems did not recognize certain words. So what this guy did is he actually brought them together, which is a word that the computer has already recognized, and a word that the computer said, I don't know what that is, and then take those two words and present it to users. Now, users or humans can actually type both those two words, and based on how many people are saying that the second word, the word that was not deciphered by computer matches with so many people, and then conclude that was the right word, right? So now, where was that used? That you and I collectively have digitized 2.5 million books in a year. Completely, right? Now that is incredible. So this is essentially using OCR data and human collaboratively together with vast amounts of data that is done by these OCRs and do that. Now, of course, Google brought that, and it's called reCAPTCHA. And then there's another iteration of it that came, no CAPTCHA, reCAPTCHA. And finally, what we see today, all of you, is the last one, right? I'm sure many of you have seen this thing that comes up and says, I am not a robo. Now, initially people thought, what the hell is this? I mean, why are you asking me to say I am not a robo? Of course, I'm not a robo, right? But what is happening behind the scenes is when you go and click on that, huge amounts of information from your browser is actually sent to Google, right? Information about your browser type, your plugins, your location, your IP address, including where did you move your mouse from, right? Which corner of the browser it made. All of that data is sent back, and within second, that decision is made whether you're human or not, right? That is now machine learning, big data, and everything. Now, you can imagine the engineering that is happening behind the scenes just for that one click. Of course, there are a lot of things which come into picture on training. Many of you see a cat picture or a traffic light picture and ask you to select it. That's part of the training, right? So simple apps or applications or functionalities that we see are basically informed by data. Now, this one, I won't get into it, but many of you, I'm sure, would have experienced this a few years ago. Not a few years ago, actually, a couple of years ago, I wanted to go for a vacation in Sikkim, and I was searching for some good hotels on a desktop browser, right? Nothing to do with on mobile, desktop browser. And I had looked at a few things and bookmarked a few things. And in the night when I opened my mobile phone and on the Facebook, this is what happens, right? It not only showed me that the hotels I had actually bookmarked or on TripAdvisor on the desktop browser, the mobile phone, Facebook is showing me that the prices have dropped now. And not only that, my friend, your ex so-and-so friends have been to that hotel. Maybe you want to ask a recommendation on them. Now, this is, to me, it is freaky. For a lot of people, this is amazing. And what is happening here? This is not just data from one source. Remember, these are completely disconnected end touch points for the user. However, we are being tracked, we are being traced. The data has been collected from multiple sources. I'm not talking about the morality of it or ethics of it, and that's a separate discussion, right? But what I'm trying to talk about is this huge amounts of data. And remember, the data is not homogeneous. This is disparate data, high volume data. And all of that is being used to present some very interesting insights for people to make decisions. Now, the third one is even more fascinating. I don't know, I'm sure many of you would have booked tickets on IRCTC. And then, remember the time when you had a waiting list? The only way to know whether this waiting list number will actually confirm or not is you used to ask your friends and relatives saying, yeah, I have waiting list 88. Do you think it will get confirmed? And then that wise uncle will say anything below 50, you will be confirmed. Don't worry about it, right? So this is all based on experience and heuristics and gut feel. And IRCTC, Indian Railways, recognize that this is a very important need and a problem to solve, to give some sense of confidence to the users or the passengers to let them make that decision. So they used 12 years of data, right? And came up with this mechanism during your booking flow. On this particular day, at this particular time, for this particular destination, for this particular train, the pattern in the last few years has been this, and hence the probability of your ticket getting confirmed is 80% or 60% or whatever it is, right? Now, you can make a lot more confident decision on whether you want to continue with that or just not to go with it or look for other options, right? So simple examples in our own personal lives, very fascinating examples. I am sure you're all familiar with both in enterprise and consumers. The point here is the trend, if you look at it, all these are products, by the way, right? And products now are incorporating data in many different ways. It is, you're incorporating data for your own decision making if you are a product leader, right? Whether to invest in this product or not to invest in this product. What are the areas in the product that the users are using the most or not using the most? What should we build next and what should we not build next, right? All these decisions are being made using data, and that's important to understand, right? The third one and the final trend that I would see, and I'm sure all of you recognize this and living through it, is products are being built very differently today than what it was built 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So think about this. In most of you, if you're following the agile methodology, right, it could be Scrum or Kanban or pair programming. I think pair programming is pretty much gone now. So let's take agile, right? If you look at it, there is a Scrum team. It is a self-organizing team, and it has representatives from different teams. It has engineering, you have design, you have sometimes marketing, you have, of course, quality, and you have a product owner or a product manager, and you have sometimes many products involve their customers, and of course, sales. If it's an enterprise product, sales will always come in. They won't sit through all your meetings or anything, but they have inputs, they influence things. So this is a self-organizing team. And remember this now, before this, the approach was that somebody gave requirements, a PRD or a requirements document or anything, and then the engineering team went into a huddle, and the engineering manager had asked all the developers to say, can you guys give me estimates about how much time we will take to build this, right? Now, some mechanisms went in, and then finally out came 6 months. And then the person who is supposed to be driving this project or product, it could be program manager, project manager, we looked at it and said, okay, it's going to take 6 months. QA, how long are you going to take? And QA is going to come and say, after the development gives us the build, then we are going to take 3 more months to certify this. And then, so all these things have completely changed now. So you're supposed to be sitting as a cross-functional team, pick each requirement or user story or whatever you call it, and then all of you should agree on what is the time that it is going to take, what is the effort that it is going to take, and there is a consensus. So now imagine in this context, what is the role of that engineering manager, right? Some of you still might be denying and saying that, oh, absolutely, the engineering manager actively participates. Absolutely, you should actively participate in all of the, but the days of where you would say engineering will do this much and this time, and then we will throw it off the wall to QA, are gone. So this team, this self-organized team, is making the decisions on what we can implement in this given time box, right? Time box is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you define. And even if one person, let's say the designer, comes and says, look, I will need about 2 weeks to even design this, so forget about talking about delivering this in 2 weeks. So which means that now you have to take a very different approach. So all of this puts emphasis and need on different ways of working in projects, different collaboration, different skills, different mindsets, right? So these are 3 important trends. Now, before I go into tips, any quick comments, questions on what we just discussed? All good? It'd be great if I could get a audio feedback so that I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you're speaking about the Scrum Master Agile methodology, which is an evolving one. So all this product managers needs to have the skill sets, or how it is like.
Good. So I think since you asked specifically about Agile, Scrum, now Agile is just general, broad approach, but Scrum is a specific methodology. So here is the thing. There are 2 things when it comes to Agile. One is what many people do called Agile project management, right? Which is after you have a backlog that is groomed, prioritized, and then all these ceremonies happen, right? The planning meeting, the stand-up meeting, and basically implementing it, and then making sure, collectively, you're making sure that the definition of done is met, right? Development done, coding checked in, review, tested, automation, and whatever tests that you want to do, and then you're saying this is done. That is all Agile project management. There is a whole set of activities that happen in the context of Agile, which is also product management. Now, this is all about understanding from the backlog, what are the drivers that influence the prioritization of this backlog? What are the ones that you're going to put it in this particular time box and that particular time box and further? So which is about roadmap. And roadmaps are different for different stakeholders. If you're working on roadmaps for customers, it's a different approach. If you're working on roadmap to the development teams or the product teams, it's a different approach. If you're working on roadmaps for your leadership team, it's a bit different. There, 9 different roadmaps that are there. So a product manager is actively involved in an agile way, not in the day-to-day running of this project, but essentially from a strategic view, right? So why should we even prioritize this than the others? There are 6, 7 different factors that come into picture to influence that prioritization, right? Customer need, escalations, new revenue opportunities from sales. Engineering says we are running on old technology, we need to upgrade. Leadership team, someone will come up and say, hey, you know what? I have this brilliant idea in the mind, right? And we have to implement this. We call this as a HIPPO, right? Highest paid person's opinion in the room. Sometimes, in some companies that is very, very powerful and very influential. And you have business drivers, and you as a product manager are looking at market, evolution of market, future, competition, all of those things. So it's a very complicated criteria to use on your existing product backlog and prioritize. So that is where the product manager comes into picture. Yeah, did that help? Hello? I don't know who asked that question, but
Thank you very much, Satish.
Okay.
Satish, this is Sandeep here.
Yes.
I'm having a specific question. I'm already communicating with the institute from last 1 month, and I'm trying to dig out. I'm basically having near about 17 years of experience into project and program management. I'm specifically coming from IT infrastructure, network, and cloud domain. So I have not coming from basically the development background. Okay. And right now at this moment, I want to explore the options, how I can get into the product management field, and whether it is actually, will it help me in the future? So that is what I'm trying to understand. I had a word with several guys who is already a product manager I've contacted through the LinkedIn. I got to know if you have a normally a development experience, that's only guys they have same. So
No,
being
no,
a yeah,
absolutely not. That's a big myth in the industry and many people. And I'll talk about that in the subsequent time. And then we'll take your question if it is not clear, Sandeep, right? Because I know
okay,
many of them might have similar question, right? So this is not about engineering to this, you should have a technical background, irrespective of what functional background you are in. And I'll talk about that, how, approaches and how to think about this, right? How to get in. Again, when I
okay,
say this is again not about product management. This is not about getting into product management. This is in getting into product roles. And there are many different roles in that. Product management happens to be one, right?
okay. Yep, got it.
Okay, good. So I think, maybe this is also a good time based
Satish,
on Sandeep's question.
Satish, just one more before you move on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with this proliferation of, the products and also data in recent years, there's also been a rush within the organizations to transform, right, and kind of move to these new ways of working. And in that, sometimes what happens is that you kind of disguise the same mindsets and modes of working as, let's say, Scrum or Agile, and so that also kind of leads to a lot of frustration for people who are actually coming as product managers or product owners who know that it requires. So what are your thoughts around this, and how do what should a person at that position do to help that and
That's
not
a
get
very good
bogged down
question.
in this?
Very good question. It's actually an organization question. Ashish, right? Is that Ashish?
Right, sir.
So it's mainly an organization question, Ashish. What happens is, as you rightly said, many organizations are in a hurry to rebrand themselves, reposition themselves as companies that want to focus on products, right? Because that is an imperative. Whether even companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, all of them, while they continue with their existing business models, they know that those are under threat. Especially any other country with any other talent comes up and says that we are going to be 1/3 cheaper than India, the companies will move, the clients will move. There is no doubt about it, and it has already happened. It is happening dramatically. So hence, these companies are, of course, looking at enabling and empowering their employees to equip themselves with that product skills. Now, the way that they take that is very interesting, right? Some organizations want to basically first do a superficial coating so that to the external world, they want to show that we are actually transformed ourselves into a product organization, mainly to attract product talent. And which means that still internally, so if you're not talking, please go on mute. Yeah, thank you. Right. So internally, they are basically doing a quick change. For example, a lot of companies are changing business analyst role to product owner role, right? A lot of responsibilities are the same for them. However, not recognizing product owner, product management, or strategic view, right? Not necessarily product owner that much, but product management. So this level of maturity of setting up product organization, developing the responsibilities, KPI, performance evaluations, is taking time for the organizations. So within that time, when people move into these roles and figure out sometimes that nothing has changed in what I'm actually doing, right? I've been doing the same thing then and same thing now, causes this frustration. Now, there are a couple of ways how to deal with that. Maybe we'll take that towards the end of it. But yes, this is not uncommon at all. However, there are a lot of organizations that are doing a pilot, right? Which means they'll focus on one business unit and they will say, let us transform this from the ground up, which means letting go of people who are in the current roles and hiring a completely different set of people with those skill sets and mindsets. Now, that's a little bit of a radical thing, but when you have to experiment in a small scale, those are the best ways to do it. So companies are actually reaching out to experienced product professionals, product consultants, and saying, can you help us define a product team, right? Organization. What should be the role and responsibilities at different grades? Associate product manager, senior PM, group PM, director PM, VP PM. And then what kind of quality should we look at to hire from them, hire them, and then define performance management and performance evaluation criteria. Many companies are doing it like an incubator in a small scale. So those two approaches is what you see, but there's no quick answer to say, here is how we can overcome that situation. It's a journey that they're all taking.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Satish.
Sure. Okay, so 3 tips again. Mostly, I have a lot of them. I have about 18-20 tips which I usually share in different contexts, but I thought for this discussion today I will focus on 3 ones. Now, many of you, if you are actively looking out for an opportunity, right, within the company or outside the company, into a different role, different responsibilities, different pay package, different compensation, all of that, right? So understand that hiring managers are evaluating, or senior professionals, right? When I say again 7+ years experience, they are looking at it from 3 dials, right? Think of these as 3 dials on your car dashboard: leadership skills, functional skills, and domain skills. Now, many of you are familiar with what domain skills are, right? It could come from specific industry like telecommunications, healthcare, e-commerce, banking, insurance, or whatever those things, right? So many of you may have spent years in that as business analysts, as consultants, or solutions architects, whatever. Then you have functional skills. Functional skills are basically whatever role that you're in, whether you're in engineering, whether you're in operations, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in project management, program management, those are, and product management, right? Product management is also a functional skill. So these are the skills that you're expected to be good at for that particular role. So for example, let's also complete the leadership part. Now, leadership is very important because it's also an often abused and misused word. Everything these days can be clubbed under leadership. But when it comes to products and services and offerings for addressing the market needs, I would put 3 very important skills from leadership point of view. One is influencing without authority. And I'll talk about why that is important. The second one is negotiation and conflict management. And the third and the most important skill, according to me, is the ability for you to convince and influence people on storytelling, right? Essentially, if you are not able to convince your Scrum team or your customers or your leadership team or your peers through compelling story means not just random stuff. It's basically provide factoids, information, and inspiring them, motivating them, then none of these things will happen. Meaning that, in a role where you don't have direct authority, where you only have to influence people to do what you need to do for the success of the product or the project, that skill becomes absolutely critical. So these are the 3 dials. Now you have to look at yourself individually and say, what am I good at in this? Where am I in this each dial, right? So for example, if you come from a security domain, right, or a networking domain, let's say networking domain, you are really good at, let's say, how routers work, how networking works, and switches, and all of those things. And let's say you work in Cisco and you want to join Juniper, right? Now, the hiring manager at Juniper is going to look at your resume and say, look, you come with 10 years experience, 5 years experience from the networking. So I'm going to assume that your domain skills are on the level of 1 to 10, you're somewhere at least 8, right? Now, then they're going to evaluate you on the other ones, which is, if you are a project manager, but if you are now applying for, let's say, a product manager, right? Where are you on those functional skills? Now, your resume is not going to talk about it, because remember, resume is a declaration of past skills. It's basically a reflection of what you did in the past, and hence telling people, this is what I know. But what is that way that you're going to convince them on? What is it that you can solve for them? What is it that you bring to the table for that particular given role that you're looking for, and especially if you're transitioning into a different role, right? So we'll get to that in a minute. So evaluate this in the functional skills, and they are going to evaluate you on that functional skills. And resume is not going to be enough there, right? So, and leadership skills need to be very high. So let's assume that you are low on functional skills and you are good at domain. All three dials must be high to leadership roles or senior roles that you are going to get into. If you're talking about 3 years, 4 years, 5 years work experience people, if you're really good at one of these things, then maybe that's good. But if you're going to be into, as a senior professional, 10 plus years experience, looking into senior roles or leadership roles, you better be good at all these three dials, 10 on 10 or 9 on 10, right? Minimum. So hence, recognize that these three areas, right? And I'll spend some time on how you can probably get into those things. Tip number 2. I'm sure many of you have heard of this statement that balance your T's, right? Meaning, don't go too deep in one area, don't go too broad that you are so shallow. You need to balance your T, right? So, typically this is where engineering comes. This is where lots of project managers comes. And the best example for breadth is consultants, right? You look at any consultant from consulting organization, and they will tell you everything. They'll know about any area, right? So you talk about e-commerce, they have a viewpoint on it. You talk about them fintech, they have a viewpoint on it, because their job kind of requires them to quickly get up to speed on what the industry is, what this market is about, and have a position, right? Have a point of view, but they're not really experts in that, right? And to a lot of times when that's good enough for them to have initial level of conversations with their clients, and any tricky question or deep question, there's a great answer always, right? Oh, that's a great question. Let me come back to you on that offline or separately. I will have a separate discussion on that. And then go back, either bring in the expert or dig a little deeper and do that. Now, what is really important now for all of the folks that are looking to get into senior roles or even leadership roles in the context of products is cross-functional skills, right? Remember the context that we talked about, both in the agile environment, as well as you talk about leadership roles in products. Now, when I say product leadership roles, again, I'm not talking about just product management. You may want to continue in engineering. You may want to continue in operations. You may want to continue in IT services. You may want to continue in consulting, but get into a leadership role, right? So VP of consulting, VP of engineering. Remember, these are not the best of the engineers or consultants that are gotten there. The reason why they become leaders in the context of these products and services is because they really know and understand the cross-functional aspects of business, right? What are those? Those typically will include not just about building the product, but how do you take the product to the market, right? What are the strategies, sales strategy that we are using, go-to-market strategy that we are using? What is the pricing about? What is the pipeline? Understanding the sales vocabulary, product marketing, working with partners, understanding channel pricing, business finance. All of these things are absolutely essential, right? Without which you are not going to be perceived as a leader. If you are good at, absolutely great at engineering, and you really know what your product is and how it is built, what technologies are used, that is good in some context. But now when you are working with your peers who come from different functional groups, if you are not speaking that vocabulary with them, if you are not talking to them in the language that they understand, and if they ask you questions, you answer in their language, then you're not going to be perceived as a leader. Remember this, and this is true for any, it doesn't matter whether you come from development, whether you come from services, whether you come from marketing or whatever, right? So that's why it's critical to build cross-functional understanding. Tip number 3, and this is increasingly becoming true. 7 years ago, while I was hiring for many product roles, as I said, I was a little disappointed, and then concluded that it is not the fault of people. Actually, I'm sure many of you have experienced this, or your friends have experienced this. Anytime there is that interesting job opportunity posted in LinkedIn or Naukri or whatever job portals, right? And these days they have made it so easy for you to apply. You like the job opportunity, one button and your resume is uploaded, right? Now think about what is happening. Within 4 hours of the job getting posted, there are hundreds of job applications. And who is screening those? Typically HR or talent management, who's not very clear in understanding what that role entails, what kind of person you are looking at. They only have keywords of the list of skills to look for. It's humanly impossible to screen through hundreds of resumes within a span of a couple of days and filter it out. And hence they're using bot filters, right, to weed out resumes that don't have that keyword. Now, obviously, candidates have also learned that that is happening. So everybody is stuffing their resume with keywords. It's true. I see this every day. And that's the reason why I'm saying when I look at a resume and it says market sizing, and when I ask some basic questions about market sizing, they have no clue about it. But the resume says, market sizing. And that's because, job opportunity, JD is asking for market sizing. There is no barrier for me to put market sizing on resume and hence beat the bot filters and come across. And sometimes when you do this, when you submit this, you are not even hearing back from the companies. There's not even a thank you mail anymore these days, right? It's just going into the black hole. And as a result, what we are all concluding is that maybe my profile is not good enough. Maybe I am not the right guy. Maybe I don't know, and hence I am stuck incorrectly most often, right? And hence, my strong encouragement and suggestion to all is don't bet your careers on your resume. While you have your resume, that is fine, but start building demonstrable assets. Start demonstrating the skills that you learn, you have, whatever you have till today and whatever you're going to get later, to showcase to people, to differentiate from the crowd. Otherwise, you are just one among those thousands of people who also have a resume with keywords in it, right? So try and identify ways to demonstrate these things. And to demonstrate that, you need to have something to demonstrate. To build that something to demonstrate, you need to learn that skill and know how to apply that skill, right? Sitting and watching some videos is not learning a skill. It is becoming buzzword compliance in my world, right? So you have different layers of learning when it comes to acquiring new skills. And especially it's hard if you're a senior professional because there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen before new learning needs to happen. So focus on demonstrable skills more than the resume skills. And many people have transitioned completely different roles, completely different industries by presenting themselves, by building their personal brand using their assets and demonstrable skills, right? That's a critical way, important way of how you should approach it. I think this is very important for many of you who are actively looking out for opportunities today. Right, so those are the 3 tips. But a very important point to understand is each one of you are unique, right? You have certain core skills, certain hard skills, and certain soft skills. But more importantly, each of you have a certain preference of what you want to do in a career. What is that career for you, right? So if you look at that, each of you need to identify those gaps. And we call these as career anchors. Right? Each of us have these anchors that hold us together. Some of us are high risk appetite. Some of us believe that I want a stable, secure job. I'm not the guy for challenges. Some of you will basically say that, the only rule I will have is that there are no rules. Right? And some of you will say that I don't want to be dictated by managers and telling me what to do. I want to be independent as much as possible. So there are 8 different career anchors that it's a cocktail of these things, and these can be assessed by psychometric assessments, right? Especially this is developed by Edgar Schein from MIT, and thousands of companies use this. And by the way, many of you, if you're taking a step forward in the IPL programs, especially the executive MBA, each one of you will have to take this career anchors assessment. Then there will be a personalized coach who will help you interpret those assessments and then define a path towards that career, right? The career path planning happens for each of you. Now, it's not just enough if you identify your own individual career anchors, right? You also need to look at where you are today. Is your organization today supporting and provide opportunity for your growth based on your career anchors, right? So if you are a guy who has that entrepreneurial creativity, who always wants to solve problems, work on new things, interesting stuff, but you're in an organization that doesn't value that much, is that the right place for you, or is that something else to look for? Similarly, there are a lot of other things that come into when you talk about maturity of the organization. And then don't take eye off the ball on the market. Lots of changes happening in the market, both from a technology disruption standpoint, from consumer behavior or user behavior standpoint, right? There's a lot of other changes happening too, in terms of consolidation, in terms of industries just disappearing, new industries getting created. So be constantly aware of what is going on. And how do you do that? Please read. Right? There's no substitute for reading. Spend about 15 minutes, half an hour a day in one particular area, in one particular industry for a month, right? And get a good understanding and grasp of what that particular area is, how it is evolving, what are the trigger points, what are the changes that are happening, right? If you're in financial services, you can see a ton of disruption that is happening today. If you're in education, there's massive amount of disruption that's happening. If you're in a company that is doing physical goods manufacturing, biggest impact, negative impact in that particular area. And it is not just about forming an opinion, uninformed opinion, but making an informed opinion. Now, an intersection of all these three is where you need to figure out what is the next path for you, what are the gaps that you have to get to that, and how do you fill those gaps, and what is a path to do that, right? So that's important. A lot of people are doing it. While thousands of people who may be in the same situation or you are taking chill today, Saturday morning, kudos to all of you to join this, to understand, because that shows, that demonstrates that you are very keen and serious about doing something to better your career, to improve, more progress moving forward. Three important ways to do this, how others are doing it. Move away from managing projects to managing experiences, right? I won't even talk about products, managing products. Ultimately, products and offerings and services that we all use as consumers, either individually as consumers or enterprise users, right? Many of you are enterprise users as well. I'm sure you're using some collaboration software, Slack or Gmail or Office 365 or Teams or whatever it is. You're all consumers, you're all users of it. So managing the experiences of the users is now the focus, and going to be the focus, because that's where differentiation happens for companies. Build those demonstrable assets. Don't rely purely on resume, right? And there are many ways how to demonstrate it. People can write, publish, do a 2-minute video, do a presentation or talk. I'm sure a lot of opportunities within your own company and outside company, right? And to do all of these things, it's really important to recognize that staying relevant and future-proofing if you are moving or want to move into leadership roles in the context of products, right? Reskill and upskill is absolutely important. Now, I personally believe that with all the craziness and the pandemic around us, there's a lot of overwhelming stuff among us. But I personally believe that this is the best time to upskill ourselves, because one, it provides a great distraction, valuable distraction, a useful distraction, if you will. And second thing is, there are going to be numerous opportunities on our way very soon. In fact, they're opening up already. I'm seeing lots and lots of hiring happening in some particular areas, and there's no hiring happening in some particular areas, right? So you want to be ready with those new mindset, new skill sets, and your arsenal of skills, right? So that's essentially what I had. But before I get into talking specifically about IPL programs, any questions I'm happy to take right now.
Thank you, SaiSatish. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I think what you talked about, demonstrable assets, really resonated with me. And I had two follow-up questions on that. One, I think, which you briefly touched upon, but I would love to hear in more detail. What are the kind of demonstrable assets a candidate could look at creating? Yeah. And number two, since CV remains the most preferred way of showcasing our skill sets or experience right now, what would be a good way to showcase those demonstrable assets to a current or a future employer?
Great question, Anand. I think this is very relevant, and let me spend a couple of minutes on that. The first thing is, what are those demonstrable assets, right? So all of you have, let's say, on an average 10 years experience. And you might have gathered expertise in some area or the other, right? It could be domain, it could be functional area, right? One of you said you are in IT operations, you are in infrastructure operations, you are in an engineer developing in, let's say, in machine learning, or front end stack development, or if you are really good at you're a business analyst or a project manager and have good understanding of a particular industry. So don't throw that experience away. I think it's very, very important, because we once we put it in a resume, we think it's past. Start thinking about, how do I now use that experience and expertise to build my brand, to say, I am an expert in this, I can talk about this, I know how to do this, right? So these could be simple. The assets could be like, pick up while you read some things, while you come across on LinkedIn, spend about 1 hour in writing 150 words of your own perspective on some things. Let's say you saw some industry event happen. Let's say you saw some very interesting acquisition that happened. Or let's say you saw some new technology being used in a different way. What is your perspective on it? Now, it's not easy for all of us to come to. Believe me, it's not easy to get to that stage, but you have to put yourself through that context, through that environment, and kind of force ourselves to do that, right? If you are not able to do this as a discipline individually, then do this in the context of some program that offers you this, right? It's important to get that. One is, providing your perspectives in a written form, publishing it. I'll give you a very simple example, right? In executive MBA, in product leadership in IPL, this is mandatory for all participants, wherein in the first 1 month, you have to write, on one particular topic. And the topic is, if I were a product manager of blah, and this blah could be your favorite product or your favorite company. These are the 5 things that I would do in the context of this product. Now, you are not an expert already, but what you are trying to do here is force yourself to think based on the learnings that are happening to you, based on the discussions that happen, and come up with those things. So one of the guys a couple of years ago wrote a blog that said, an article that said, if I were the product manager of LinkedIn, here are the 5 things that I would do. And guess where he published it? On LinkedIn, right? And then that got the attention, of course, tagged the LinkedIn managing director in Hyderabad. What is preventing you from doing that? Nothing, right? Today, anybody can tag anybody. And when he tagged that, it got the attention of him. And that person actually wrote back saying that, look, I don't agree with the 4 of the 5 things, but that one thing that you said is very interesting. Why don't you come down to Hyderabad and let's have a discussion? Right? Few months later, job offered. There are lots of examples like this, just one instance that I'm giving you. The second type of assets is, if you're not good at writing, if you still think that you need some practice, what does it take for you to do a 2-minute video today on giving your perspective? Record it, publish it on YouTube, share it. Third one, talking engagements, volunteer engagement, presentations, moderator, a lot of these things. Now, that is one side. The other thing is the assets, demonstrable assets in your own area. Now, designers know this intuitively. Designers know this by default because they have to build a design portfolio to convince anybody that they are good at design. Ask any designer, they'll tell you what a portfolio is. Now, why should this portfolio be restricted only to designers? Project managers can build this. Products can build this. Engineering people can build this. Remember, engineering folks have a portfolio already. Don't you have a GitHub account? If you don't have a GitHub account, start doing this, start putting those projects. Right? So there are different ways to build that portfolio. Now, how do you demonstrate? The next part of your question, Anand, is many different ways, right? One is use that resume itself as an anchor or a first point so that people can look at your profile, your assets before they look at your resume, right? Now, if that resume is still going through the HR and talent people, remember the same thing will happen, which is a filtering, the weeding out based on keywords and everything. And hence, find another way to reach to the hiring managers directly rather than the hiring HR and talent people. And at IPL, every participant in executive MBA or the ICPM program gets to host their portfolio that they have built as part of this program, because every skill, it's mandatory to build a portfolio that you have to demonstrate. Every skill, right? There are 20 plus skills in the executive MBA. There are 5 core skills in the ICPM program. Every skill, you have to do a hands-on activity, You have to build that portfolio, and there is a place for you to host it, and there's a public URL that you can share it with anybody. And there is a career assistance platform at IPL where hiring managers come to look at this, and basically not going to evaluate you purely on resume. They're going to evaluate you on whether you know that skill, whether you can apply it in the context of a challenge that they will give you, and demonstrate it to them, right? So these are happening in multiple places, but put yourself in the context where you have the opportunity to do it. It takes incredible amount of discipline and drive to do this on your own, by the way. If you can do it, that's the best way. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, it does.
Hi,
Thank you so much.
Satish. Hi, Satish. Srinivas here.
Yes, Srinivas.
Okay, so maybe I'm asking on behalf of several people. So let me take my thing. So with less than 5 years of experience, so is it good or is it too early for me to get into this role, or what kind of roles will be available? And because this 5 years of mine so was not spent in a single domain. So mine is kind of techno-functional. I was into SAP basis for a couple of years and then came into project management in the lower level. So I was not the project manager, but I was in part of the project management team. And now, so I'm in a dicey situation, to where I need to go. And I thought, okay, will this put an anchor for my career?
Yeah. So I think, with 5 years of work experience and let's say in a functional role of project manager and anything, my view is it's a perfect time to transition because the barriers for you to get into those roles are not very high. If you are a 10-year plus or 12-year plus and looking for a product manager, 15 years plus, I wouldn't even recommend looking into that role. You should look at product leadership roles because you've garnered enough experience in the industry and some expertise in some particular area, and you can absolutely get into that same area and accelerate into leadership role. But at 5 years up to 7 years, I would say is the best time because the barriers to get transition into those roles are not high. So hence it's easy to, and from a new skills perspective also, it's relatively easy for folks below 7 years because, I've seen and I work and coach people anywhere from 5 to 25 years experience. A lot of people with 15 plus come with this chip on their shoulders, nothing wrong on it, saying that I think I know everything, right? So, and then what happens is unlearning part becomes all the more challenging and difficult to learn new things, right? Because now you're looking at a bias, you're looking at a confirmation bias, if you will, whereas that is far less when it comes to lesser experience. So whether you come from project management, engineering, or anything, if your desired role and responsibility is to be in the context of products and work with the teams as you make small decisions around products, right? Now there are different levels of decision that you take in products. One is right in terms of among the list of things, what are the things that we prioritize? And within the list of prioritizing things, defining clearly what should be done, how should we solve the customer problem, not defining the solution, but defining the problem clearly in terms of user stories, definition of done, and all of those things, right? The next level of decisions is prioritization, investment decision, where should we put our people and money, and what should we shut down and what should we not do. And the next level is portfolio level and all of that stuff. But absolutely great time in my view for you to look at if you are interested in that is, which means you need to spend some time in understanding is that right thing for you, right? So that's the key point.
Satish.
Hey Manoj.
Yeah, I have a question. So how different is a technical product manager from being a product manager? So because most of the tech companies, right, look for both roles, right, being a technical product manager and being a product manager.
Yeah,
so
good question. If you basically take a step back and understand what is supposedly a product management role, right? The way I would describe this is with an analogy, right? I'm sure many of you, and by the way, I'm using this context as his question, each person's question, and answering in a broad way so that many people can get that context, not just the person who asked for it. A product a person in a product role, and especially in product management, think of this analogy, right? You would have seen those Western orchestras, right? Where there are a bunch of violinists, there are a bunch of pianists, there are a bunch of cellists, and there are other musicians, right? And there is this guy who is wielding these two sticks, right? Going up and down, showing here and there. For a layman looking at this person, it looks like, what the heck is he doing? I mean, he's not even playing the instrument, and I don't even understand what this guy is doing. So that is a product manager. He is the orchestrator of the orchestra. And this person really understands the nuances of each and every instrument. He or she understands the nuances of violin, cello, piano, and everything, and acknowledges that each of the players who are playing are the experts. He is not the expert, they are the experts. But this is a person who knows when to dial up one particular instrument, when to dial down, so that you create a harmonious orchestra. Now, and translate that analogy into products. A product manager should have a very good understanding of certain core skills of product development. That includes, if your product, by the way, is a technical product, meaning it requires, it uses complex technology, or your customer is a technical customer, meaning your customer of a product is a developer, the person needs to have very good technical knowledge, but at the same time should acknowledge that you are not an expert. The engineers are the experts, right? The marketing folks are the experts, the designers are the experts, but this person should have a working knowledge in all of these things, so that when you are talking to them, when you are having conversations and discussions and decisions, that's being meaningful. So you can highlight, dial down, dial up, and everything, and hence create that product. So technical product management is quite different. Well, not quite, is different from a regular product management, because a PM role typically is a techno business role, right? In the technical products. If it's not a technical product, then it's more about customer context, business context, market context, right? The product manager should bring those things to the discussion. That is their strength. So if you're in technical products, the expectation is that you know this technology well and understand it enough. You doesn't have to be a developer or an architect, but typically what you see in the industry is people who are in engineering background move to that role, right? And because it's an aspirational role for many of them. A product manager is an aspirational role for many, many people. And engineering to PM role in a technical context is a natural transition, right? Because you still are attached to the technology, but at the same time, now you are bringing in the customer context and business context. But if you're not in the technical product, you still can be an absolutely effective and efficient product manager if you are able to bring that domain knowledge or business context or customer context. That is a way to think about, rather than, I'm a technical person, I'm not a technical person, is this right for me? Flip it around and ask yourself, what other context and what other expertise do you have, do you think you can bring, or at least learn to get it right? You see roles like AI product management, data product management. Now, not all of us should run and go and do AI and ML skills. If you want to do it, great, but not all of us have math background, PhD, or basic statistics and all of that to do it. So hence, a lot of people from engineering background may move into that role. But if you're a person who have really good customer context and the business context and the market context, and by the way, none of these things are natural. You have to acquire them. You have to make a deliberate effort to acquire those skills and learn those skills, and the right way to do it, and you can absolutely do that, right? So simple answer to the technical PM is more focused on the technical aspects of your product, especially if your customers are technical or your product is highly technical. Yeah.
Hi Satish, Latika here.
So before we go to Latika, did that answer the question, Manoj?
Yeah. Thanks, Satish. Thank you.
Okay, Latika, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a basic question actually. So I'm working as a senior BA right now, business analyst. I have also worked as a PM in the past, as a junior PM, as a lead, and as a scrum master. I have total 10 years of experience. So is it okay to say that being a product manager would be the next step, logical step for me? And the second thing I want to talk on is that all these roles have a fine line between them, and generally in our companies we tend to overlap them. So how do we generally understand like in the mid transition level that which role suits us better?
No, it's good. So is that the next step for you? Is something that I can't tell, but I'll give you some parameters to evaluate it, right? So if you really like being in a role where you would want to understand more about the problems that you're solving and the customers that you're solving in for, and bring that perspective in. If you enjoy or want to do, understand why are we doing this as a company, as a product, or a business, right? What is the reason for us to do this? And how is this helping propelling the company or the product forward, right? In terms of corporate strategy, in terms of business strategy, in terms of product strategy, and bring that perspective back into the product. If you're the person who likes to understand how the market is evolving, what changes are happening, what will it be from 2 years from now, if we don't adapt and evolve, what will happen to us? And if you're a person who likes doing those things, product for anyone, not just from business analysts, for anyone, this is a perfect role, because that's the role that sits at the intersection of all these things, right? So now coming to the overlap, as I mentioned before as well, a lot of companies that have business analysts as roles who are now creating product owners, because believe me, product owner is for the last, and it's become very popular in India, because that's a first step companies are taking in repositioning themselves and the organizations to be product centric, and hence business analysts will move to product owner role. But as you said, a lot of them, there is a thin line between these. However, business analysts have long focused on getting the client requirements, customer requirements, and defining them properly for the teams to do it. If you are doing that in the context of products, which means there are multiple customers for you, not just one client, then it is product owner role, right? Now, again, product owner role is very operational and very tactical, meaning making sure that that the teams are understanding what you need to build, understanding the clarity that they need to build, making sure that is being built in the time, making sure that you're delivering it in the right way that you believe it solves that problem. However, the next stage after that is a product management role, which is more about even identifying those things which should be built or not, right? So that's the first step from product owner perspective. So yes, absolutely, this is I regularly see people continuously moving from business analysts into product manager, not even product owner directly. Now, it's also a function of the organization. Remember, if that organization is not giving you that opportunity or has that by nature of it, then the question that you should ask is, should you continue, or maybe should you look out for another place with that? And that transition is absolutely possible.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right, so I'll continue to take more questions, but let me give you a really quick peek into the two kinds of executive programs or learning programs in the context of products. And when we talk about products, remember, as I mentioned, design and data are absolutely part of products today. Products are being differentiated in the market basis on design, and we talked about lots of examples and the way data is influencing or informing the decision making. So before we get to that, I think it's really important, and many of you know this probably, but many of you are where you are because of what you did and what skills you have. But those are not the same skills and same activities that will get you to the next level. So what you got, and this is a very famous quote, right? What got you here won't get you there. Meaning that understanding what are the next set of things that you will need to get to that aspirational stage that you want in the next 6 months or 1 year, right? So that's an exercise that you'll have to do. Now, as Saurabh was mentioning in the beginning, IPL has been laser focused on providing executive education in the area of products and product leadership. More than 2,200 alumni have gone through the various programs. Many of them are senior leaders today in various companies. And what is also interesting is many of them come back to IPL to hire from the talent pool that is there, because they believe that the way that people experience that learning is very different, more hands-on and more experiential than anything else, and hence prefer to come to hire from the talent pool. There is a dedicated talent, hiring platform that exists. For executive MBA, IPL has partnered with several universities, because Executive MBA is a UGC approved, Government of India approved program, one of a kind in India, right? So, hence it needs to be, the degree is by a university, whereas the entire learning experience and journey and everything is driven by IPL's pedagogy. And the way IPL designs these curriculum and hands-on activities and experiential learning is working very closely with executive industry council, right? So these are, think of these like a set of people who are leaders in the industry today, right? Heads of companies, general managers, heads of products in various companies. And IPL works very closely with them in bringing in the most contemporary and relevant set of competencies and skills that will help them make transition quickly. With a very simple question, right? IPL goes, the academics board in IPL goes to this executive council and asks a very simple question. If you were to hire somebody in this particular role, from any role, right? What are we missing? What should we be doing differently, right? So that's how this entire program gets designed. Lots of corporates, have worked with IPL in numerous capacities and numerous ways. Some companies wanted a product organization to be set up and help their leadership train and understand how to do this. Lots of employees have signed up for a variety of programs. Many of your companies also have education budgets. So a lot of these companies are willing to say, go ahead and do that executive MBA or that ICPM program, or whatever off-campus program that you want to do, that comes out of that learning budget, right? So, hundreds of companies over the past 10 years. So let me quickly walk through, what are the key highlights in terms of the learning part of it, right? So there, as I mentioned, the curriculum is absolutely contemporary, relevant, and designed in conjunction with the practitioner leaders in the industry. All the faculty, and these are stellar faculty, right? All the faculty is an academic term. People who actually facilitate the sessions come with two things. One, very strong industry practice. I mean, these are all practitioners. These are people who do on a daily basis, right? For example, somebody who teaches product marketing at the executive MBA is actually considered a thought leader in this country on consumer behavior and consumer marketing, right? Somebody who teaches business finance in executive MBA at a faculty is actually an ex-CFO of Titan Industries, right? So a lot of people who do and have done this are people who come. And the second reason why most of them associate themselves with IPL, including me, by the way, is because, with a simple notion that what we have learned and gained over a period of our experience and work life, can we compress the learning cycle for others and help people get to where they want to get to in a shortest amount of time, right? Meaning that here are the mistakes that we have done in our career. I want to share them with you. You don't do the same mistakes, go and do different mistakes, right? So that way you compress that learning. So pretty much everyone at the Institute comes with that mindset, and hence a lot more passion, a lot more commitment towards helping people achieve the outcomes rather than, just let's do some classes and sessions and move away. Every program has a dedicated learning manager, right? And all of you are working professionals. It requires motivation and drive and that pushing and prodding, because a lot of things going on. We have a life, right? We have families to take care of. We have other things going on, and hence you need somebody who will encourage you, motivate you, and say, my friend, next 2 weeks you're going to work on this particular hands-on activity, this assignment, this case study, and submit it so that the faculty can discuss it with you. So there is a dedicated learning manager for every program. Most importantly, there's a very interesting saying at IPL: learn on a Sunday, apply on a Monday, right? It has to be that practical. This is, while learning about frameworks, concepts, tools, and all of that is good, but when that practitioner faculty also tells you that this is how it works in the real world, because you will encounter these challenges and here is a way to deal with it, that is something that you can take. And this is very important for many people who are looking to transition within your own company, right? Your before and after has to change with, for the people around you. They have to perceive you, they have to look at you as very different people. Hey, something is going on with this person, in the last 15 days or 1 month or so. they are thinking differently, they're asking different type of questions, they are behaving differently, and that is when recognition happens internally. And when you are ready for that, when you ask for that particular role that you say you want to do, it will not be a difficult thing for people to say yes, right? So that's important to do that. And all of that can happen only, remember, a skill can be learned by practicing, by applying things. It cannot be learned by just watching some videos or reading some books or anything. So that is a fundamental approach that IPL takes in its programs. All busy professionals, you may miss some courses, some classes, joining some sessions, whatever. All sessions are recorded and made available to you, so that as a reference later, or even go back to the next session and say, look, I have these questions, can we discuss about it, right? So more important. Now, for the executive MBA participants, is a very, very interesting component, highly valued by various participants, right? Right now, there are 5 batches running for the executive MBA. The next one is going to start very soon, and I'll show some important dates. But in this particular program, there is a component called Product Labs. And Product Labs is interesting for many reasons, but the way this works is every participant is expected to get or will bring a product idea or a business idea. Right? Of course, there'll be some workshops and ideation session that will help people understand how to filter out ideas, what to look for in an idea, and then present it to the entire batch in 5 minutes. And everybody votes on that idea on some certain parameters. And then a shortlist emerges and founder teams get formed. And then the journey starts for the next 12 months, right? It's a executive MBA is an 18-month program. So the journey starts, and as you learn the competencies, the skills, right from how do you think about an idea, taking that idea, understanding your customers, identifying their pain points, is called customer discovery, problem discovery, validation, and using quantitative techniques, using evidence to make decisions and move along the way and take it all the way to the market, right? It is completely hands-on, evidence-based. It's not theory, it is not something. Now, this is not designed for people to become entrepreneurs, although there are several teams that have come out and started several companies after that, right? There are 5 successful companies that came out of their product ideas, right? But more importantly, for people who have not been accustomed to or familiar with the productizing process, this is a fantastic way to go through the journey personally, right? You may come from sales background, marketing background, project management. Most of you might have a view of one particular area, right? If you're in product development or engineering, you only know the product development aspect of it. You're not aware of what happens before and what happens after. So this will give you with hands-on activity. And by the way, what is the risk of failure? Nothing. The best outcome of this is learning what not to do and practicing what to do, right? So it's called Product Labs. And in the off-campus programs, there are skill labs, meaning every skill there is again, and this is exactly where we talk about you can relate to what I was saying on building your demonstrable assets, right? As you are learning, as you are building these things in a hands-on way, you are also building the assets that you can demonstrate later and showcase it to the market, right? So that's a very important part. The other thing, many people implicitly know and acknowledge, but it's hard for several people to do this. And I often say that sometimes who you know is more important than what you know, right? So network is absolutely important. These days, more than the resumes, the opportunities come by from the people you know and the people who they know, right? So indirect references. But there is a considered way of building that network. At the institute, every week there is either a master class from an industry practitioner or a industry connect, where somebody who is either hiring in their company or pick up a relevant and contemporary topic and come and address the students, right, or the learners here. And all the learners are working professionals, right? So, and that gives you an opportunity to interact with them, to create that network, to contribute that network, including the vast and active IPL alumni. And then when you have to leverage that network, it won't be difficult. If you are forming your networks with the sole intent of getting a job or asking for a job, it's not very effective, right? So you have to contribute to that network in many different ways before you can leverage that network. So it's important to start forming those things. It is not something that will happen right away, right? But you have to do over a period of time, and there's no time to waste there. Okay. Now, quickly on various competencies and skills. These are categorized into the context that I talked about. I won't get into too many details, but I've already explained what customer context is, business context is. Market context becomes really, really important, right? Market problems is in the sense of what are the revenue models? What are the business models? How big is the market for us? How do we quantify an opportunity? How do we make a business case to your BU head or leadership team to say that, hey, we should work on this or we should not work on this, right? A business case requires you to understand all these contexts. Many of you are familiar with the innovation context because most of you might be coming from the place where you are working with the teams that are building things, right? Either engineering or project or program management aspect of it. All of these things require, as I mentioned, specific leadership skills in the context of products. So those are the ones that all of these, the programs look at them as individual competencies that one needs to acquire, not just by sitting through some videos and classes and whatnot, but in a hands-on way, right? So these builds you the cross-functional competencies so that you can get to that leadership roles in whichever functional area you are in, project management, sales, marketing, or even into product roles. So I spoke about many of those things. I'll summarize what I mean. At the Institute, the approach is study outside and learn inside the class. Study outside the class and learn inside the class, meaning there's a lot of good information available. Of course, a lot of junk also available. People can get overwhelmed and confused about how to go about doing this. So hence a curated pre-reading, case studies, digital learning is all provided to the participants. And once that is, between the sessions, if it is executive MBA, it is an alternate weekend program on campus. If it's an off campus, it's a live weekly sessions. Between those, you study those things, come to the class with set of questions and topics that you want to discuss with the peers and with the faculty, right? Again, the faculty is a practitioner, so it's best. It's called flipped classroom in many contexts as well. Now, another very important way to know whether you have actually learned something or not is not through an examination, right? Exams are basically, required for some, process-related things or compliance-related things in many cases. But if you really have to be ready, and from your own confidence point of view and demonstration of this to others, you have to build a way to demonstrate that, right? So every program in IPL, every skill has what is called as a skill-a-thon, which is you present that particular hands-on activity that you've done, that project, that asset that you've built, or the product idea to a set of external audience. And these audience is not just coming to watch and listen to you, but the jury are all industry practitioners and leaders, right? So for example, if there is a UX and UI skillathon that is happening, user experience is an absolutely critical skill for any role that you're in today. Because as I said, the products have been differentiated with design and experience in mind, and hence it's important to have that particular vocabulary and skills and frameworks in mind so that you can work with the designers. You may not want to be a designer, and that's fine, right? But it's important to have that. So let's say there is a UX skill that you go through, which is 1 month. All skills at IPL are focused on 1 month. And at the end of it, each one of you are expected to build that asset portfolio and present it to the external jury. Now, 3 things happen with that. 1, you yourself are confident now on that particular skill or area, right? It could be UX, growth hacking, financial model or financial analysis, or customer insighting, or any of those. And then now you're demonstrating this to external jury. And often this external jury, apart from being the leaders in their space, they're also hiring. So this also gives them a good opportunity to say, hey, you know what? This person is really good. Now, why don't I talk to you about the opportunity that we have? And this is not hypothetical. This happens every skillathon, right? There are at least 2 skillathons happening every month for some program or the other at IPL. So do join in, even if you not part of the program. I think it's fun. You can learn something. You can understand how people present, what kind of feedback is given. You can continue to do all of those things, right? So that's called assurance of skills. I've already spoken about leadership. There are some very important skills, leadership skills in the context of products that are required. Now, all of these things will be part of the executive MBA, but only some of them will be covered contextually in the off-campus program. There is also a dedicated off-campus program on strategy and leadership, which I'll talk about in a minute from now. But the way that this works is there are psychometric assessments that are provided to the participants, and then they are paired to leadership coaches, right? So there is a leadership coach when it comes to advanced presentation skills. There is a leadership coach when it comes to art of storytelling. There is a leadership coach who is expert in negotiations, right? World expert in negotiations. And each of you get that one-on-one time to understand what your gaps are and how you can fix them to become better leaders, right? To provide better leadership. So some pictures on how the actual, remember the product labs that I talked about. This is a team that actually was trying to build some product for the auto rickshaws. And you can't build something by sitting in your room. So you have to get out, you have to talk to these people and understand their workflows, their challenges, their pain points, and what their motivations are. Gather that information, come back with that evidence, and make decisions and move on, right? Work on these product labs ideas. And this is the skillathon that we talked about, right? So, and by the way, this guy is actually an Air Force pilot. So many of you are asking, I'm from project management, will it work for me? This guy is an Air Force pilot who fought 2 wars and came back and said, I want to start something on my own. And what kind of journey should I take? What skills do I need? And the way that you get is presenting this. So lots of stellar faculty. I think many of us, including me, I also teach at Indian Institute of Management, specifically on product management. Many of the faculty are also, as I said, not many, almost everyone is a practitioner. So I'll skip these, and all of this information, by the way, is available on productleadership.com website, right? So you'll see this and a lot more about what people have gone through. What are they saying? People have gone through this journey and the impact that it had on their careers, right? So the career transformation is something that I see on a daily basis because I'm also a career coach for the ICPM program. And what makes my day is when I see an email from somebody who are going through this program, and I have had a few coaching sessions, says, Sai, I got into this role. Thank you for all the coaching. This has been amazing. Now, help me how to navigate this challenge ahead, right? So those are amazing stories that the reason why I spend more time on coaching on this. So quickly on the programs, I think there are 2 types. One is the executive MBA, which is on-campus program, and then there are off-campus program. So it is an 18-month in Bangalore. So it happens both in Bangalore and in Pune. I think the Bangalore one is about to start very soon. The admissions will be closing soon. So you see most important dates on the right side. There's an orientation program that is being currently scheduled on June 19th, where a deep overview of what is available for the participant, how can they make most of this, and some industry talks. And there is an immersion that is planned. Usually immersion happens and should happen on campus, where various participants, and about 20% of the participants in every batch actually are from a different city, right? So they travel from that city to Bangalore, CMRIT campus in Whitefield every alternate weekends, because it's an alternate weekend program. Everybody is a working professional, average 13 years or 14 years of experience. So it's a government approved program, right? So the way that this program essentially covers almost everything that is required for you to move from where you are without any base assumptions about whether you have product skills or not into the product leadership roles, right? So the flywheel that you see in front of you is called adaptive productizing framework, which basically categorizes the core competencies into inbound product leadership and product management, and outbound, which are red colored. And by the way, this is used in a lot of organizations today to look at how to build competencies and groups and teams in companies. the focus is very simple. Enable the participants with practices and competencies to build and deliver products predictably, right? Now, there's no guarantee that any product will fail. But if you don't put that deliberate practices into action and make a considered effort and knowledge-based effort and practice-based effort, it is bound to fail for sure, right? Hence, and of course, there are lots of interesting methodologies that are used, including lean approach, to take right from the idea into product by testing, by hypothesis, by experimentation, evidence gathering, and all of that. And along the way, all these skills and competencies are focused for every month, right? So these are the ones that the executive MBA participants will go through this. So it's 3 semesters. The first and second semester predominantly focuses on the core competencies of product leadership, including the core skills and the leadership skills, and the product labs that continues. And third semester is slightly different, where every participant either get to choose that they will now want to convert their product labs idea into a venture. If they choose to do so, that means you now want to become an entrepreneur because you've seen enough evidence of your product idea or business idea that it can actually become a business and you are interested and keen on doing it. Or for people that say that, look, I'm not interested in becoming an entrepreneur or building my own business or whatever. The other option is all of you get to work, all of the participants get to work in a real world industry internship, right? So there are a lot of companies, startups, mid-level and large companies, startups like Bounce, startups like Swiggy, startups like Razorpay. Well, these are not really startups anymore, but still late stage startups, or companies like VMware, Microsoft, Oracle. They actually bring in the real world business challenges so that the teams can work on that, and it all happens in a confidentiality situation and all of that, right? So that's on the third semester part of it, along with some advanced courses in data analytics for product leaders, data informed decision making, and all of that. So the program is an alternate weekend campus based program, right? So it's important to understand this is not an online program. There are classrooms. There are diverse set of participants who come from different industries and domains with different experience levels, and the faculty, and then the discussions happen in a classroom setting. Now, of course, given the current pandemic situation, for those people who cannot come, and of course now the classes, the campus classes are not happening anyways, but the learning continues. The classes and the sessions happen virtually through video conferencing and interactive way. Even when the university allows IPL to start conducting the classes, even after that, for people who are not very comfortable in coming yet, can join. In fact, it's been viewed as an advantage by some people, right? So in the current running cohort, one of the batches, there is a guy who's joining from Australia, right? It wouldn't have been possible before, but of course he has every intention to come to relocate to Bangalore and then join the campus session. But I think the important thing to note is this is an on-campus in-person classroom sessions, also available in a virtual interactive mode because of the current pandemic situation, and until that allows us to conduct classes. In fact, until last month, the batches have had classroom sessions where about 60% of them were comfortable enough to come to the campus, following all the social, COVID protocols, social distancing, all of that stuff. Yeah, and that's how this program will continue for the upcoming batch as well. Any questions I'll take at the end of it. But remember, all these programs is not just about classrooms, classes, sessions. It has to focus on your outcomes. It's an outcome-driven program where the emphasis from the institute as well as you have to be on getting those outcomes, right? Some of these outcomes here are, how do you build a personal brand so that you get recognized in the industry by your potential companies or hiring managers in your favorite company that you want to join. Get noticed by differentiating yourself, by demonstrating it, by talking about what you know and different skills that you're acquiring, right? And important thing is, along the way, you form these networks with your cohort, with the larger IPL alumni network who are all senior leaders, with the industry people who come and interact with you all around. And most importantly, it gives you a very hands-on, prescriptive way of taking a particular idea and working on a product and realizing what is involved in it, right? So at the end of the day, you are very confident that you can be in a corporate setup and take that existing product that is there or a new initiative and have the confidence to take it through to the market, right? So that's the important outcome to focus on. So for all the participants of all programs, right, including Executive MBA, there is a career assistance platform. Now, this is not about, as I said, resume-based hiring. The people who come to hire are hiring managers, and they come with an acknowledgement that you may not have product management as a title in your resume, but you have the skills and able to demonstrate it. And hence they give a product challenge as part of a hiring event. So there is a hiring event that happens by a company that wants to hire. And I've been told that there are at least 7 hiring events that happen every month. So which gives me a lot of confidence. There's a lot of hiring happening in product roles, right? So, and I coach a lot of them, come and say, Sai, can you help me? How do I, here is an assignment or a challenge. How do I approach this, right? How do I think about that? So, but more importantly, before you get there, remember we talked about career anchors, identifying the gaps that you have, what are your strengths, and defining a path to get to achieving those career outcomes, right? So this is called Career Labs, and this is available for the Executive MBA participants. So quick thing on the off-campus programs. These are live faculty-led virtual programs, right? So these are happen. So people can join from anywhere. Each program, the structure is the same, which is there's a program on product management and product marketing, very focused for people who want to get into that title from wherever you are as a product manager. Designed with 5 core skills for 5 months. But given the current situation, pandemic, many of us are going through different things. You have the flexibility of having access to this program up to 12 months, right? So while it's designed for 5 months, you have access to this up to 12 months. And each participant will get curated digital learning as a prerequisites to bring everybody to baseline. And then there are live weekly sessions, interactive clinic sessions, lab sessions by the faculty. And these faculty are all practitioners. It's a self-paced program. This is for people who are looking to move into product management specifically, right? So if you are interested in that, the URL is rethink.mba/product. Then there is a design program, which is focused for full stack designer, right? People who are interested in becoming not just being a visual designer or a user experience designer, but a full stack, right? That includes interaction design, information architecture, visual design, user research, and everything. The third one is on strategy and leadership, right? So this is for people who are looking to currently in tactical managerial roles, but to move into strategic roles, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily in the context of products, but in the context of corporate strategy or business strategy or product strategy, or essentially get into leadership skills, right? The leadership skills that we talked about. Now, all these programs, along with the live guided sessions, including the Executive MBA, you have unlimited access to one-on-one coaching with these practitioners, right? So that's an important thing to realize, because many of us underestimate the advantage or the benefits of coaching. I have personally benefited immensely from great mentors and coaches. They help you remove your blind spots. They will guide you in the right direction and helps you get that one-on-one coaching that you need, right? Because coaching is often one-on-one. It's not, team-based or a group coaching part. So these are the off-campus programs and specifically designed for helping you getting into that type of roles. Now, as I said, the Executive MBA admissions are on. They're going to close very soon. If anybody wants to know more about it, you know who to talk to within IPL. I'm sure they've already started, initial interactions with you. There is an admission process, and it is going to follow a certain prescribed norms. There is going to be an assessment that you will have to take just to understand where you stand on certain skills and certain areas. And this can be taken through mobile app, straightforward one. And then there is going to be a group discussion where some of you will be put into two groups, and there is a topic given, and you will have to argue for or against that particular topic, just like any other MBA, right? I mean, there are a lot of great institutes, by the way, in this country, which offer you that general management focus, right? So if you want to become a head of HR or operations or finance, organizations like IIMB or ISB are fantastic organizations, right? They follow through a similar admissions process. And once you go through that group discussions, there are personal interviews, one-on-one with the admission panel. And the admission panel is comprised of IPL alumni and industry leaders or industry practitioners. And then an admission is offered. So it's important that there is a process, and it's not a cakewalk. Let me tell you that I'm part of the admission panel as well. So there are certain things that will be evaluated on, right? So once you go through that admission, there is a formal intimation to you whether you are admitted or not. Of course, that is only for the on-campus program, which is the executive MBA. For our off-campus programs, this kind of because it's a certification program in collaboration with University of Houston Boyers College of Business. Boyers College, by the way, is ranked number 2 in entrepreneurship education in the US. And they have partnered with IPL to offer this program. And the program completion certificate will be issued by University of Houston, right? So those are the off-campus programs that you have. Of course, as I said, several batches from 2013, we completed both in Pune and Bangalore for the executive MBA. And this is a proper degree, Government of India approved, where you're eligible for PhD if you want to do later, right? So there's an MBA degree part. So some of the pictures of cohorts at CMRIT and Pune. So with that, I'll kind of take a pause and see if there are any questions on any of these programs specifically that I can answer. I may not know answers to all of them, but I'm sure the team at IPL will be happy to give you that information.
Hi, Satish. Srinivas here again.
Yes,
so with the affiliation so you said the certificate will be given by University of Houston. So what other advantages will it add when it is from that kind of university? And you also said Bowers University, which is second in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So what kind of other advantages it will add?
I'm not sure what you mean by other advantages. So here's my personal view on certificates, by the way, right? So now you can take it with a grain of salt. Any certification, not just this certification. Think of certificates like a health insurance policy. That's the way I look at it. It's good to have one, but don't hope to use it. Meaning, don't bet your careers on a certificate, right? It's some kind of a validation from somebody, which is good. Now, by the way, because it's international certification, which means to whomever the University of Houston is according this certification, everybody is treated the same, right? It's not like people in India are treated and US are treated differently. It's the same certification. There are a lot of people who are taking this from Dubai, from Malaysia, from Singapore. All of you get the same certificate. By the way, it's not accreditation. Accreditation is a much more formalized university process, right? So this is a certificate that is offered. So hence, in any learning program, I think that I've emphasized that, right? Focus on not just on the course and the skills, but the ecosystem and the environment that you will be part of, that you can take advantage of, right? In terms of learning, in terms of networking, in terms of demonstration of skills, in terms of portfolio building, and in terms of coaching. These are the 5 things that you should be looking at in any learning environment, not just IPL, right? Focus on environment. So yeah, from a certificate standpoint, I think the one Benefit is that it is exactly the same for to whomever gets it anywhere in the world, right? That is the advantage of it. Now, it's not like companies are giving you jobs based on any certificate. I've hired more than 36 product managers in my career. I've never hired anybody based on a certificate alone. Certificate might give you that edge, a little advantage, but that comes only secondary after you're able to convince me that you bring these skills to the table, not just what you did in the past, but here are I can show you what I can do in terms of the product skills. Yeah, hopefully that clarifies.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Hi Satish, Vishal here. So I just want to know, is there any plan to start a batch in Pune campus? Because you talked about Bangalore campus. So is there any plan for Pune?
So there is one running in Pune right now with MIT University. Now, I don't know of the current plans, Vishal. I think Pune has been hard hit more than any other city in terms of pandemic, right? So I think university has also basically said we will need to wait for some more time to see if this gets better, because this program is obviously going to be highly effective. At least sometimes it happens in campus, right? If not all the time. So I believe the dates are not yet finalized, or I don't know when the next batch is, but something that is starting in Bangalore is what I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Are you from Pune, Vishal?
Yes, Satish, I'm from Pune.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure the team will let you know when the batch is starting next.
Okay.
And so before we take the next question, a small note. Very good afternoon, everyone. This is Saurav again. If you check the chat box, because we were discussing the program, we have put a bit.ly link where you can book an appointment with the academics team and maybe know more about the program across the board if you have any further questions. That link is mentioned in the chat box. You can use that and book your appointment as per your convenience with the counselors. So just wanted to put that word across, and I think we already have the next question. Please continue.
Saurav, I cannot see the link in the chat box. Sorry to barge in.
It's in the chat box. Let me put it once more.
Yeah, I think, if you click on the 3 dots, it says more and go to chat. I see the last message is the link. It looks
I've
like
again pasted the link, everyone. Maybe you can use that. So you can use
we can't see
Saurav, even we can't see anything, Saurav.
we can't see it.
So maybe what you can do, Saurav, is after this discussion, why don't you send that information in an email to everyone?
Got it now.
Sure. That will certainly be done on an email as well.
Yeah, I think Saurav, you posted the link only to panelists rather than everybody. Suraj did that just now.
Yeah. So
there's a bit.ly link, guys.
That's right. That's a bit.ly link.
Okay, good. Any further one last questions before?
Hi, Sai. Yeah, this is Jinil.
Hey, Jinil.
Yeah, so I have a question from the Skillathon. So I just want to know how the role of a product leader is different from a product manager.
No, but are you trying to link the Skillathon with that? Because Skillathon is basically a way for you to demonstrate that you are now skilled in that particular area, right? So it gives you confidence. It tells other people also that you can do it. So that's an event that happens, as I said, I think every month there are 2 Skillathons happen. Day before yesterday, there was a product marketing Skillathon happened. Fascinating ones, right? Everybody can join, by the way. It's an open one. If you go to productleadership.com website, there is an events page. The next Skillathons will be published on that, and join it, right? So it's fun. You can watch, and which is where the industry practitioners who are the jury, who actually will give good constructive feedback on what they saw missing and how can they improve. But the other question that you're asking is, what's the difference between a product manager and a product leader? Is that the question?
Yes.
So as I mentioned, product leader is somebody who is still in their functional area, functional role. That could be engineering, that could be project management, that could be marketing, that could be sales, but are making strategic decisions in the context of products, right? Products or services or offerings. So in your company, you look at VP of product management, VP of engineering, or marketing or sales, and if they are all working in the context of products, they are all product leaders. It's just that they are also functional leader and they are making specific decisions in that function, but they are collaborating, influencing, and making strategic decisions with all the other cross-functional leaders. So product management is a much more specific. Your responsibility as a product manager is to basically, very simply put, building the right product and building the product right. So often in development and product development, the focus is on building the product right, but product managers is building the right product, building it in such a way that when you take it, it actually succeeds in the market. So very focused on that. And as you grow in that path as a product manager, senior PM, group PM, these are, by the way, the grades in India, starts with APM, right? Associate Product Manager. And it's a very interesting role. It's India came up with this role which didn't exist globally, and now many other companies are copying that, is Associate PM. Associate PM is a role where if you have 2 to 3 years in engineering and you are really want to get into product management, and companies are providing you that growth path, right? Because now you understand the product, you understand some technology, and if that is want to continue in the same product and same company, here is a path for you to move into product management and APM, right? So APM, then product owner, PM, senior PM, and group PM director, and all of that. So that is very focused on, when it comes to finances, budgets, money, investments, initiatives, everything is context of that particular product. Whereas the product leaders, your focus on budgets and investments is in your functional area. But when it comes to decisions around, cross products, you're working with this leader. So there is no title as a product leader. It's a responsibility. It's an influence that you have. So you don't have to come from a particular functional role to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So if there are no further questions, then I think good luck, all of you. As I said, I think this is a good thing or a bad thing. Whatever is going on around us gives us the opportunity to get upskilled and be ready and relevant for the opportunities that come our way. All the best, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sai. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.